Purposely. Your life, God's purpose. Listen at purposely.com. Purposely Equipped, an exploration of the Nicene Creed.
Continuing our look at the Nicene Creed, it's been around 1,700 years. These are basic ideas that all Christians can agree on. And we're up to a point in the Creed with discussion with my pastor, Pastor Barry, and we're in the section that, again, emphasizes the Holy Spirit. We believe in the Holy Spirit, the Lord, the giver of life, who proceeds from the Father and the Son, who with the Father and the Son is worshipped and glorified, who has spoken through the prophets. What are some ideas here, Barry, that we need to hold on to?
So, Mark, if our listeners look at the Nicene Creed, they will see that the vastly largest section of the Creed has to do with Jesus Christ. Right. And the reason was that at that time, in 325, with Arius and the Arian controversy, the Arian heresy, they needed to establish the relationship, the role of Jesus Christ, the relationship to the Father. Now we shift this time into a discussion of the Holy Spirit, and there's not a lot said about the Holy Spirit. And interestingly, in the original Creed, in the first stage in 325, all the Creed actually said was, and in the Holy Spirit. That's all that basically the Creed said. But there was a second stage, which was the Council of Constantinople in 381 AD, that added the words essentially that we have now, and then there was actually a third stage, the Council of Toledo. So the doctrines of the church were addressed often in the face of heresy, and in this case, it wasn't for another 50 years until they faced some heresies around the work of the Holy Spirit that they then addressed it more carefully. I want to circle back to that because it's important in church history, but before, we don't want to jump over the importance of what the words say about the Holy Spirit, that the Holy Spirit is the giver of life. At church yesterday, we're recording on a Monday, we talked about the work of the Holy Spirit in our Christian life, our Christian walk, that we are born of the Holy Spirit, that we can't even come to Christ unless the Holy Spirit is engaged with us. And so in this setting, we have the Holy Spirit identified with the Trinity, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Remember, we said una substantia, tre persona, one substance, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, but different roles, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. And the Holy Spirit is God actively at work in our lives today. The Spirit of Christ, the Spirit of God, the Holy Spirit actively involved. And with the Father and the Son is worshipped and glorified, who was spoken through the prophets. So we worship and glorify the Holy Spirit, just like Father and Son. Now, the controversy that was addressed a little bit later in the evolution of the Nicene Creed is called the Filioque controversy. Okay. And that had to do with the nature of the Holy Spirit. The Western Church, centered in Rome, believed that the articulation of truth around the Holy Spirit should be that the Holy Spirit proceeds from the Father and the Son, not just the Father, whereas, and the Filioque, by the way, is the word around proceeding from the Son. And so the Eastern Church, centered in Constantinople, now modern Istanbul, believed that the Holy Spirit didn't proceeded from the Father, but didn't proceed from the Son. Now, this happened around the turn of the 5th century, but it wasn't until another 500 years that this was one of the reasons in 1054 why the Eastern Church, the Orthodox Church, as we know it today, split from the Western Church headquartered in Rome. And today we have two quite strong churches and expressions of faith, but slightly different in their theology. The Eastern Church, as the name suggests, covers much of Eastern Europe and Russia and some of the Middle East.
I learned about this controversy, and I was saying, what's the difference between Catholics and Orthodox? And This is where it started.
This is one of the big ones. There were others in terms of the leadership of the Pope in the Western Church and the leadership in the Eastern Church. There were some other things that eventually led to the separation, but one of the main theological reasons was this one.
Yeah.
Now, that's a big aside historically. The thing to realize is the work of the Holy Spirit in our lives today. God with us in Jesus Christ, and God is with us in the Holy Spirit.
Purposely Equipped, an exploration of the Nicene Creed. To hear this discussion again, or to hear other episodes, visit kcisradio.com/morning devotion or purposely.com.